Sound speeds. And if you work in the world of production, then you're probably like me and fill out a lot of start paperwork and get a lot of W-2s at the end of the year. But how do you keep track of them all? Well, personally, I have a document that I have that helps me do just that. And in this video, I'm going to show you how to use that document in case you want to download it and use it for yourself. Here we are at my computer looking at soundspeeds.us, my website, where you need to go if you want to download the document I'm about to walk you through. Now, all you need to do to download it is go to soundspeeds.us and then go /payroll, and it will take you directly to a site where you can download the document inside of a zip file. For starters, why would you want to use a document like this? Well, if you're on a full-time show all year, then you're only going to be given one W-2 and maybe a 1099 for you to keep track of your rentals, and that shouldn't be a very difficult thing for you to keep track of at all. But if you are between shows, or maybe you work on commercials or E&G stuff, or you just day play on a whole bunch of different shows between shows over the course of a 3 or 4 month span, and then again a few months later, then you might have a hard time keeping track of what shows are paying you and when. That's the reason for this document. It helps you streamline the whole process very, very cleanly. Let me show you how I use it. Let's just say that in one given week, I'm going to be working on a total of 5 different shows. Let's say the first show I'm going to be working on is going to be the Dukes of Hazzard. No, they're not remaking it, at least as far as I know. But actually, for our purposes here, yeah, they are. So I worked on Dukes of Hazzard. Then the next day, let's say I worked on Game of Thrones. Okay, this is a pretty busy week already because we're talking about in 2 different countries. Okay, and then the third one, let's go to The Walking Dead. I'm just working on nothing but the biggest shows ever. Okay, so let's see here. The next day after that, whoops, I'm not working on the same show or 2 different shows in the same day. Let's say on this next day, I was working on The Honeymooners. I went back in time, I guess, and I can spell too, I promise. I should have picked something easier to spell. Okay, and then the 5th day of the week, this is a Friday now, despite whatever days that might fall on. Let's see, I was working on, The Godfather. So I was working on all those different movies and TV shows in the same exact week. Now, if it comes down to me not being paid every single other week, like you normally run into on a full-time movie or TV show, perhaps you're doing E&G work, you're doing commercials, something that might be a net 30, net 60, net 90. Months down the way, you might be kind of like, what have I been paid for and what haven't I been? Well, if you simply put in your document the days that you worked, like for example, I know for a fact that I worked on all 5 of these shows on that Monday through Friday, or I'm assuming that's a Monday through Friday. For our purposes, it is. Monday through Friday, I had a very busy week and we shot all those different shows in all those different areas. Now, when I get the pay stubs for them, what I would do is then fill out the rest of the document because I don't know how much everything is. Let's just say that I know my rates. On the Dukes of Hazzard, geez, those people didn't pay very well at all because it was back when, in the 1980s. Except for our purposes here for 2021, they only pay me $25 an hour. Well, then Game of Thrones, man, that was a big time show. So they paid me $65 an hour. And then Walking Dead, another big time show, they paid me $65 an hour. And then The Honeymooners, I only made, let's say $6 an hour because it was like, big time thing back in the day. And then Godfather only paid me $12 an hour. So, considering those rates, I would know exactly what I'm being paid for those shows. So when I get the pay stub, I can easily look at it and say, okay, is the rate checking out? Yes. What were my hours? Well, hopefully you took a picture of your time card and you can reference that. However, when you look at your pay stub, you can easily go through the rest. Say, okay, on Dukes of Hazzard at a $25 an hour rate, let's see, we worked enough hours for me to only get $300. And then the total tax on that I paid was $100. Now, of that, let's see, state taxes was about $25 of it, which means automatically calculates for you that the federal tax was $75. Well, on Game of Thrones, I made $800, and then total taxes on that was $250. State taxes on that was $100, and then we're going to duplicate that same exact thing. So that way it's going to keep numbers kind of easy. Well, you can see how easily this is to keep track of when you have everything in a document right here nicely in front of you. So I am going on through all of this, and we're going to figure out exactly what these amounts are once we figure out all these values. And you're going to get these values by looking at your time card. So I'm now just about done, and we now know how much I was charged or how much I billed production for, because this is how much I was being paid for working on these shows, wasn't I? Now, payroll company, we're just going to keep it easy, say ABC, 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to call it 1, 2, 3. Let's call it 1, 2, 3 instead. We're going to call this Walking Dead production, Dead payroll. And then we're going to call this one Honey. And then we're going to call this Mafia. Okay, so the address, let's say, okay, you get the idea. I don't need to enter all this information. But if you enter all this information, you will have it in your document, and it's simply going to be at the top of your pay stub. I don't need to do it all here. It's going to be goofing off here as far as this document, or this video rather, and I don't need to do that for our purposes here today. Now, union dues, if you're working on a union show, you might need to reference 3% or 2.5% of your union dues. Percentage of that paycheck would go towards your union. So if, for example, I was working on the Dukes of Hazzard and I had to pay, let's say 3% of that, then that would mean that I, out of my $300 a day, that would mean that my union dues were $9. And then on Game of Thrones, that's not right at all, is it? It might be. I don't know. Let's hope that my math skills are correct. Double check me on this. Let's, 3, yeah, let's say 75. What is 3% of 75? 75 cents, that's 2.25. Okay. And then The Godfather, what would that be? $4.50? Something like that? I don't know. Let's pretend that that's accurate. Now, we're going to go ahead and say that, Dukes of Hazzard, it didn't pay me any mileage because it was, here locally to me. Let's say that Game of Thrones paid me $500 because it was in another country, and I had to drive a lot, even including over an ocean. That was very expensive. Walking Dead, let's say that they were going to be charged $100 for mileage, and then the Honeymooners, let's say that they were charged $250 for mileage, and this would all show up as outside of the zone or something like that on your pay stub, and you simply just enter those values. And The Godfather, let's just say that even shot in my neighborhood here, so I didn't have any mileage driving there. Now, here's for the rental. Rentals are anything that you are charging production for. They're going to probably give you a 1099 unless you're a production sound mixer or something. And in that case, then you're going to have a company that you rent your gear from. You're going to own the company, but your company is what provides, rental to that company. However, if you are an individual boom operator, something like that, and you have a kit, then you might want to use this document there. And if you want to keep track of your rentals and how much your company is earning, then you can do that there too. Let's just say that on the Dukes of Hazzard, I was paid $25 a day for my boom poles. For Game of Thrones, I was paid $50. For Walking Dead, I was paid $50. For the Honeymooners, I was paid $3. And for The Godfather, I was paid $5. Okay. Now, additional 1099, that would be for if you happen to have an additional charge for some reason. Like, for example, let's just say that they would give you an additional 1099 because you ended up selling something to the production. Like I sold speakers to the show P-Valley, and when they did that, they sent me 1099 that was separate from my payroll and my normal rentals because it was just a 1099 direct sale to them. So that's the kind of thing you would put under additional 1099. Now, once you have all this thrown in there, it's going to automatically calculate for you, provided you don't clear out these this cell. You see the code up there, the little formula. It will tell you how much is total for your W-2 taxed. Now, you could also, if this is a 1099 show and you just want to put under additional 1099 how much your show is paying you, you can do that too. Rate doesn't go to anything and tally up everything. It doesn't average out your rates or anything like that. Mileage does. Union dues does. Union dues is located, where is it? I know it's right here. Total dues paid is right here. And then your total mileage is right down here, how much you were paid in mileage. Rentals don't show up. Actually, I take that back. They do show up right down there, so it just tallies up this entire column. Now, if you look at this total W-2, this is going to tell you the total gross pay that you have for all these different shows right down the line here. And then it will also tell you your total income, including all your rentals, mileage, and everything, how much it all adds up to, and then the grand total less expenses. Now, what are expenses? Well, let's just say that when you worked on, let's pick a show here, Game of Thrones, 6-2. Let's just say that on that day you had airplane ticket, and your company and you're renting yourself out to the show, let's say, and for whatever reason your company said, well, we'll buy you the ticket, or you can pay for it yourself and reimburse you. You trust Game of Thrones, even though you normally wouldn't do this at all. You would make them buy you the ticket. Let's just say that you had an airline ticket. You know what? We're not going to play that game because that's not the right way to do it. Instead, what we're going to say is you had to buy, what would be something you'd have to buy? Let's just say that you chose to rent a car. Okay, let's just do that instead. Your show, you voluntarily are there and you decided you were going to rent a car, but because you're going to be using it to drive to and from the show, which they said, you know what, we are providing you with a bus from the airport and then back the next, when you're done working, so you don't need to worry about a car. But you said, no, I'm going to rent a car. Well, that would be an expense. You could say it's going to be Sound Speed's rental car is the, I can spell, I promise. You just said you're going to rent a car here from SoundSpeed's rental car. And the amount that you're going to pay was, let's say, $100. And the category here, you're going to have to look in the taxes, in the tax code, and see what your expense would go under. If it was equipment that you were purchasing or renting, that would be one thing. If it's hotel stays, that would be a total different category. You're going to have to look at your taxes, go through and figure out what category that would be under. But that would be what it is in this particular for this purpose. Now, because this is an out-of-pocket expense, technically that you did in order to work, you would be able to write that off. Well, provided it's a valid one. And your expenses would automatically be taken from this cell right over here to the expenses, wherever it is right here, expenses right over here. And then you got all your rentals that are over here too. That would be combined in here with the rentals are $133, expenses right there. Now, rental less expenses. So what that means is you've made this amount right here in the amount of money that you've rented to productions, or how much you've rented your kit for, let's say. And instead of doing something silly like renting a car, let's just say you bought a microphone. Your sound mixer says, you did such an amazing job today. I'm going to sell you my 416, and I'm only going to charge you $250 for that amazing thing. And we're going to call this an expense under equipment now. So you say, wow, I just got a 416 because I'm such an amazing crew member to work with. My sound mixer is going to only charge me $250. Well, that's definitely a write-off. Now, that means now expenses are $250 because I've spent that, but I've only charged productions and actually earned $133 in rental, which means that right now I am technically under in my account, which means that I need to rent more stuff because currently my company is losing money. Well, here's the thing. Depending on how you do your taxes, that right there could be a net loss, in which case, as long as you have enough expenses to counter the amount of things that you're renting out to shows, then you're basically building up the stock, not the stock, but you're building up your inventory of your company. In doing so, you're making your company worth more and increasing the value of it, but you're earning less in your rentals and stuff that you're going to be taxed on, because that would be your taxable income at the end of the year, provided you keep track of all your rentals and all your expenses. Now, this would also tell you your rentals plus additional 1099s less expenses. So if, for example, you also had, when you worked on The Walking Dead, let's say, you had rented the show an extra microphone for the day because they needed a specialty piece of gear, then that would be under additional 1099 that you would have an additional rental for that was, let's say the props department needed a microphone for some reason. Then you would rent that. They would bill you that separately. It's not going to be on your regular payroll from the company. And then it's going to show rental less expenses and then rental and additional 1099 less expenses. So this right here at a glance will tell you how much you have earned throughout the year, your total gross income, how much you're paying in all your different taxes, and how much you're earning in your rentals and how much you have outstanding with regards to perhaps if your company is in the red. Or if it's in the black, however much you're going to be paying taxes, it's very easy for you to estimate based on all of these things. And if you're doing quarterly payments or something like that to the IRS, or because you're, getting a lot of 1099s, this will also help you keep track of that. Keep in mind, this is just my way of keeping track of all the money I am owed, either through 1099s or W-2s, how much money I have spent on my company, or through sound speeds, any of that kind of thing. And this right here has helped me so much. Now, provided you don't delete or type over any of the codes that automatically calculate for you, then you should be able to enjoy the auto-calculating ability of this particular document. Now, if you would like to use it, simply download it. I'm not going to charge you. I hope that you enjoy it and you get a whole bunch of use out of it. Feel free to modify it. Or if you want to make suggestions on what you think could make it better, feel free. But I'm probably not going to be adjusting this anymore because I'm happy with the way it is. Thanks for tuning into this episode of Sound Speeds. Be sure to tune in the future for more behind the scenes on what works well for me and sound advice. Have a question you'd like answered or want to add something? Be sure to write it in the comment section down below. You can also make a suggestion for future topics of discussion. Again, comment section down below, or you can email me at soundspeeds@yahoo.com. Be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss out on future sound advice.